Well, what is knowledge? And how do humans acquire knowledge? Traditionally, these questions belong to the study of epistemology. Skeptics generally deny any form of knowledge. There are two kinds of skepticism: strong absolute skepticism. It rejects even the very possibility of knowledge. On the contrary, weak skepticism only refutes absolutely certain knowledge, but accepts some kinds of knowledge that may be relativistic and subjective or pluralistic. Standing against the strong skepticism in this lecture, first I will provide the four satisfactory philosophical responses against epistemological skepticism. So let me name them. First, we have a rational foundationalism. Second, natural foundationalism. Third, coherentism. And then the fourth, reformed epistemology. Moreover, to construct justified knowledge, one's epistemology has to stand on the properly basic beliefs that offer legitimate starting points. So if any form of knowledge is not standing on legitimate starting points, they are not valid in philosophy. So we're going to look at these four philosophical responses against skepticism. You could even say, or Gnosticism. A skeptic is a person who doubts or disagrees with generally accepted conclusions in science, philosophy, or even theology. In this sense, common sense skepticism is healthy insofar as it protects us from false information and deception. It can be healthy, defensive mechanism that serves as a corrective to gullibility and superstition and other false ideas in this sinful and existential world. In this regard, I know many of you and many of us, we only has a sort of negative view on doubt, but some doubt can be healthy insofar as it can protect us from the false information. We have to question those false information. In other words, doubt can help us sometimes, and doubt can also help separating from false beliefs from authentic faith. In the book of Genesis, chapter 3, the serpent said to a woman, "You will not die, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Here, instead of believing the serpent's statements, Eve should have doubted, had to be skeptical of the serpent's statement. Instead of trusting the face value of the false statement, she should have critically investigated prior to actually eating that fruit of good and evil. In other words, doubt has some positive side in it. Maybe that's why God put that doubt in every human mind. The proper amount of doubt is healthy in that sense, but the excessive, groundless doubt can be destructive. The opposite of faith for many theologians are not doubt. Maybe the opposite of faith is fear and anxiety. It may be the better choice in theology. In John chapter 3:10, this passage elaborates on the two kinds of children, children of God and the children of devil. To describe devil, it used the Greek word diabolos, which stems from the verb diabolo. It basically means to slander. My Oxford Dictionary defines the word in this way: the act of making a false statement that causes people to a bad opinion of someone. When the devil, known as Satan, makes these false statements, Christians must eliminate these false claims by reasoning properly. By reasoning properly, that includes doubting and investigating and being suspicious of those faulty statements. Otherwise, we will become too gullible to even demonic and destructive lies. In this sense, God has put doubt in us in order to help us to discern the demonic false claims and doctrines. Hence, doubt also has the positive side in it. Although too many Christians have the superficially erroneous notion that doubt is always bad and an antonym of faith. Now we're going to look at the strong or absolute skepticism. On the other hand, it denies even the very possibility of any knowledge. Humans cannot know anything at all. Most people consider Pyrrho of Elis, who lived around 300 BC, as the founder of philosophical skepticism. His belief was rooted in the sophists' view that there is no absolute knowledge since it remains subjective and relative. Knowledge is subjective and relative. Kind of one of the main teachings of postmodernism, right? Pyrrho and his students taught that since nothing is certain, a wise person should suspend judgment concerning truth and knowledge. So we shouldn't make any decision simply by suspending judgment because we don't know what it is. Out of all the sophist skeptics, we have this guy, probably the most well-known guy, Gorgias, Gorgias. So he lived around 375 BC, was best known for his absolute skepticism. The three renowned sort of statements of his doctrine. Number one, nothing exists. Nothing exists. Number two, if anything exists, we could never know it. Number three, if it is incomprehensible, it is incommunicable. Can never express it. How do you defeat skepticism and Gnosticism? How do you defeat, again, skepticism and Gnosticism? In the following section, I will offer the once again, the four alternatives to these philosophical skepticism. So let me begin with this rational foundationalism. Probably a lot of people, I would say some of the books that you should have read by now. I mean, we say Plato's Republic, and then, we want you to read something about St. Augustine's Confession or City of God. And then the third one, most people will say René Descartes' Meditation on First Philosophy. This is so monumental work. So René Descartes is known as the father of Western philosophy, Western modern philosophy. He addresses skepticism by explaining the three stages of doubt. First, Descartes questions the reliability of sensory experience. So the first doubt is, can you trust your five senses? Humans cannot totally trust these because sometimes our senses bring about false perceptions or even illusions, right? Sometimes we think that from a distance, right? It sometimes happens when you're taking a walk at night. It looks like a human, but when you're getting closer to that object, then you realize later on it was not a human. It was a tree. Kind of looked like human too. So regarding this first stage, René Descartes writes, but from time to time I have found that the senses deceive, and it is prudent never to trust completely those who have deceived us even once. The second kind of doubt, he has this kind of dream argument, shows that such ordinary beliefs are not beyond doubt. It is possible that I am in my dream, right? I am moving my head and playing with my hands, but how do you know? It is just simply happening in my dream. So that is the sort of the dream argument. And then third, right, the God or fate argument raises questions about the religious foundation. If God exists, does this God sometimes deceive humans? If yes, then God can be called the evil God or evil demon. You know what I'm saying? It's like somebody like have you watched the movie Matrix, right? In that movie, how do you know that human beings are living in this kind of Matrix movie-like setting? So in that sense, if there is evil God, right, you call it evil demon, right, then how do you know that God is just simply playing with humans? And that is the third God and fate argument, sort of raising doubts about human knowledge. How does Descartes defeat this hyperbolic doubt? How does he defeat this hyperbolic doubt resulting in skepticism? He does it with rationalism. Descartes begins with the most certain and clear principle, that is, I am, I exist, I'm certain. Right? So that's why he's famous for saying, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. So I know I exist because I'm thinking. This is a foundational principle. And in the famous Latin phrase, right? Cogito ergo sum. Now, Descartes knows that he exists as a thinking thing, and this foundational principle is clear and distinct. But what else can we know? Can I trust my sensory experiences, my senses? To defeat this sense, dream, and evil God arguments of skeptics, Descartes proceeds to the beliefs that God exists and God is supremely good. Why is it this supremely good God will deceive human beings, play with the human sensations? Since God is good, he will not play with human perceptions. So he concludes that we can trust our sensory experiences and perceptions. Was Descartes successfully defeated skepticism? It all depends on how he defines or how we define knowledge. According to Albin Plantinga, right? He's the one who studied Reformed epistemology, which I will discuss in the following section, right? So basically, according to Albin Plantinga's Reformed epistemology, right? He's going to say that basically he's an anti-foundationalist, and he believes that belief in God is embedded in every human being. So, which I'm going to come back to that later on. But let me go back to the second response against skepticism or Gnosticism, known as natural foundationalism. The second alternative to skepticism is natural foundationalism. I'll go show you that. The second one here now. First we already looked at rational foundationalism by René Descartes, right? So basically for him, right? And by thinking, by reasoning, that we can find the clear and distinct and self-evident axioms, right? And then from there on, we can build more knowledge. So that is rational foundationalism. And the second one is this one, the natural foundationalism. So basically, David Hume, right? He was born in 1711 and died in 1776. Is best known for this view of knowledge, right? Hume insisted that any system of knowledge needed some foundation. This system regards sensory experiences and natural reasoning as the foundation. So basically, he is saying that the foundational principle comes naturally to us. So we humans trust our common sense experiences. This natural foundationalism is based on self-corrective nature of its system of belief. Humans possess the natural propensities to construct beliefs and to correct them as needed. What does it mean? Okay, let me explain to you in a more plain language, right? Human minds are built in such a way that in a natural process, okay, you don't have to go to college, right? In a natural, ordinary process, humans will derive a correct, authentic knowledge in the end, because it has a human faculty. Our thinking and cognition has a our human minds has the self-corrective natural system. So in the end, we'll find out what is correct, what is incorrect, what is right and what is wrong. And that is, so it is there in every human being. So that's why they call it natural foundationalism. In contrast to René Descartes' rationalism, this system is called empiricism, right? Because it primarily gains knowledge by sensory experiences, 5 senses. In general, Descartes built his knowledge system based on reason, whereas Hume built his system of knowledge by sense experiences. So, how do you know? How do you acquire knowledge, right? The first one, like René Descartes, he was mathematician. So he's going to say like, a geometry, right? We have a theorem, like self-evident axiom. And then once you have that, then you could apply those axioms to each cases. So by thinking logically, like in mathematics, you can gain and find knowledge. Whereas in the second, the form of epistemology, right? Well, basically by trusting our five sense experiences and our natural faculty of eventually sorting out things. So we should trust our sense experiences and trust our basic human faculty of reasoning, and that is natural foundationalism. The third way of gaining knowledge, right? The third, I even say, school of epistemology is known as coherentism. Coherentism. So let me show you that. Next PowerPoint. Yeah, coherentism. The third alternative to or reaction against skepticism is coherentism. It is also known as web theory. Spider's web theory, right? It denies any secure foundation of knowledge. So it is an anti-foundationalist. Humans, we don't have the foundation, or we don't need the foundation to acquire knowledge. In other words, there is no absolute bottom or foundation on which we start building on epistemology. In order to be accepted as knowledge, as a legitimate knowledge, each belief should cohere with other beliefs in a logical, effective ways. This, however, faces a major problem because someone can reject the whole web together, as we have seen in the possible work of evil demon in René Descartes' Meditations. Although the whole system can be coherent, but it is completely wrong together. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, sometimes when you see, especially the majority principle, right? And everybody says, I believe that, but then, like the case of, geocentric and heliocentric debate, right? Everybody thought that the Earth is center of universe, right? Later on, the Copernican view, right? Well, no, the sun is the center of our solar system, not the Earth. So sometimes, the problem with the coherent, system of knowledge is that, altogether, whole system can be, wrong and erroneous. The Austrian philosopher Otto Neurath, he was born in 1882 and died in 1945, popularized the theory of knowledge, this theory of knowledge. He used the metaphor of ship or web. This is an anti-foundationalist view because it rejects any foundation of knowledge. We don't have the foundation. We don't have the bottom on which we can build further pieces. No, it's like spider web. There's no bottom foundational piece. So this is known as coherentism. Now we're going to look at so the most celebrated, well-known Christian responses. Alvin Plantinga, who studied this reform epistemology, right? Basically, he is known as authentic Christian, but he is really a brilliant philosopher. So I'm going to spend some time talking about reformed epistemology, which has been developed by, Alvin Plantinga himself, one of the leading American philosophers. He argues that the theist theist, Theist, right? It means somebody who believes in God. So Christians and Muslims were theists, right? And then, so Judaism also practice, they believe in God. So, Planting argues that theists are justified in believing in the existence of God without further evidence or argument. According to Plantinga, classical foundationalism finds its properly basic beliefs that are self-evident, incorrigible, and evident to senses. So basically, he's saying that every knowledge has to be built upon properly basic beliefs. Then what are properly basic beliefs? I told you it has to be self-evident or incorrigible, and the sort of it has to have a sort of five sense evidences. So when you say self-evident propositions are those which a person can see immediately. For example, 2 plus 3 is 5, and triangle has 3 sides. Next, incorrigibility refers to a proposition that cannot be mistaken in one state of consciousness. For instance, I think therefore I am. I'm feeling pain now. So that speaks about the second principle, that is incorrigibility, right? The third principle is basically the knowledge should be built on 5 senses. For example, like I see a house, I see a soccer ball right now, I see a computer screen. So those are more of the third category, right? That is evidence to my senses. So once again, sometimes like everybody sees a nice building out there, then we can trust that our sensory experience together. However, the belief in God does not need to be justified. Not even foundational beliefs. Hence, Plantinga proposes a new form of epistemology known as Reformed epistemology, rooted in Calvin's Reformed theology. He argues that it is natural, quoting, right? It is natural to believe in God, as we have seen in that almost all civilizations have had a pre-epistemological conviction of God or supernatural beings. Believing in God is like believing the existence of other persons. It belongs to proper basicality, which does not need a further foundational argument. For example, God is speaking to me. Reformed epistemology, however, does not represent extreme fideism, because it is neither disparagingly reasoning nor objective distinct findings, and is willing to correct its belief when a clear counterexample is presented. So don't forget that the belief in God is not, he's not endorsing fideism. Well, you know what? I believe in pumpkin God. Well, I just believe that. That kind of fideism cannot stand, because what if somebody finds that pumpkin is not God, right? Prove that pumpkin is not God. So in that sense, he is not supporting fideism, right? So so we still need to sort out things by using human reasons. As I said before, Reform epistemology, right, is rooted in John Calvin's theology. According to John Calvin, right, even after the fall, even in the stage of original sin, right? Even after the original sin, right? Calvin teaches that humans still retain the two inherent elements. The seed of religion is planted in all humans. Number two, the distinction between God and evil engraved on this human conscience. So basically what he's saying here is that, kind of going back to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4 to 6, right? The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. So even though God is clearly has manifested himself in Jesus Christ, right? Satan, made people blind so they cannot even see the light of the gospel. So that is more of a Calvinistic thinking. So, what is my conclusion? I have basically, by showing the four philosophical responses, I have argued against skepticism. In a postmodern context, today's society, there are many skeptics, right, saying, well, we cannot know. Some hard skeptics can still argue against those four responses, which I showed up to this point. If somebody say, like, we cannot have knowledge, what do you mean? How do you define knowledge? Is knowledge is certain and unchanging eternal knowledge. Are we talking about that? Or like, which I'm going to talk about in my next lecture, right? If you look at Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12, right? Now we have this partial, so knowledge, looking at things through glass darkly. In that sense, we have knowledge, but it's not 100% clear, but, we still have some knowledge. At least that's what the Bible says. At least that's my conclusion of reading the Bible regarding the passages about knowledge and epistemology. Well, I'm going to stop here for now, and I will see you in the next lecture. Thanks.